Hello, everybody. Welcome in to the NCDA midseason recap slash preview. I'm Eli Maestros from Ohio University, joined with Andrew Krankowski, also from beautiful Ohio University, and Rylan Close, representing the Kent State Golden Flashes. Fellas, how are we feeling?
Good. I'm excited to get into the second half of the season. There's a lot of really exciting stuff to talk.
Yeah, as a player, it's really exciting to get back into the tournament aspect of things, start playing and talk about everything dodgeball. Had about a good month and a half off of, thinking about it. So we're right back to it.
Right, we're halfway through the season. Records are on the board, standings are starting to take place, but hardware is going to be won here in the second semester. It's going to get fun down the last 4 months. We will start with this upcoming weekend, the 31st of January. There is three major tournaments in store. Let's talk about first the one that we're going to, Ohio University Beast at James Madison. Andrew?
Yeah, it's looking to be a really interesting tournament. There's gonna looks like that we're gonna have four teams going attending after a little bit of a fiasco with Maryland having to drop out due to some weather and their school being closed and all that. So it's just unfortunate. But you got the Ohio Bobcats coming down from Athens. Then you got Cincinnati coming all the way from Cincinnati, with Virginia taking a little bit of a shorter trip. So it's some four really competitive teams. I mean, they're all in the top 16. I think Ohio's the lowest ranked out of all of them at around
Yeah.
14, if I'm not mistaken. And then with Cincinnati at 7, and then JMU and UVA at 9 and 10, respectively. It's some four really powerful rosters you got going on with just a smaller tournament. It'll be exciting to watch. Rylan, you have any opinions on that from an outside perspective, just for a little bit of more unbiased take?
Yeah, I think this will be probably the second chance that we get to see the East Coast really clash with some more of the Ohio schools and really see semester. But it's always really hard to gauge what the East Coast could do this early in the year, just because it's so hard for them to make it out to tournaments and play some more of the more centralized teams in the Ohio and Michigan region. And I think that you guys and Cincy are going to be some good competition for them. It's always really hard to gauge where the East Coast lies in terms of like who's the top dog. Uh, Historically, it's always been JMU, and we've always seen that UVA and Maryland at times are able to beat them in tournaments and stuff. But I think come East Coast Dodgeball Cup, JMU's always been able to put it together, and I'm really curious to see if they can do it for the third time in a row this season.
Yeah, I agree. It's always a really tough thing to gauge how the East Coast teams compare up to the like Ohio and Michigan schools always making it in the top four and everything. And just it seems like last year and this year they're just a little bit outside of that. And it was really cool to see JMU travel to Ohio and play all the Ohio teams they could, Ohio and Michigan teams, and see how they really stack up. And then it's awesome to see more than one Ohio team traveling down to JMU, so they get multiple times to show them how they compete against everyone in the league. Just gives a really good taste of just the competitiveness all around the regions, not just in the selective regions in Ohio and then the East Coast. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting, even though that UVA and JMU are not playing each other as they do 8 times a season, it seems like, and they get real familiar with each other come April. This is a good test for them to play other teams, like you guys were saying, and it's also a good kind of litmus test because they played twice this year each other. The first time, JMU won 5-1. That was, I believe, at Maryland, and then the second time was at Virginia, which UVA won 3-2. So they're 1-1, both with two pretty different games. So to see which team for each respective side shows up in Harrisonburg this Saturday.
Yeah, it's just I want to go back to that take where it's just really tough to gauge those teams. I mean, going back from my perspective, our first nationals seeing two West Coast East Coast teams for the first time. Sorry, really just was a shocker to a really like high ranked Ohio dodgeball team. I mean, we were ranked what 5 going into maybe top 5 going into the bracket, and then losing two of our games to some East Coast teams that were just looked poorly upon, and they really showed their worst. So it'll be really exciting to play those two teams again in a tournament. So Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to the East Coast and their signature athletic style. You know, they're not the most organized teams historically. Obviously, this is kind of helmet scouting in football terms, but it's they just run and like you throw and there's three guys running at you and it's like you got to backpedal, you got to figure out where to put your feet, when to drop, when to catch. They catch everything too. I mean, both Virginia and James Madison. I played them 3 times total in my career. They just catch everything. So it's a really tough matchup for any team, especially the non-East Coast teams who don't see that style of play very often.
yeah. And then moving on, I know we got a doubleheader going on between Kent State and Michigan State. That's a really fun matchup to think about. You got the number 5 seed going up to play the number 3 seed, an undefeated MSU with a 3-loss Kent State. Rylan, any thoughts on that coming up as the coach?
Yeah, this will be a really fun one to watch. Unfortunately, I can't make it in person this time around. But you know, historically, we've always had a lot of fun playing against MSU. I think they're going to be a really good challenge for us, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see what they can do. There's a lot of people have been trying to put asterisks on some of their like power rankings or whatever, or like their undefeated record, because I know that really the only like heavy competition they've been able to play this season is GV, but they've looked great against GV, and GV's looked great against a lot of other great teams. So we're fully expecting them to be back into that like top tier nationals championship ready form. You know, the whole roster has another season of NDA underneath their belts. There's no reason why this team shouldn't be near the top of everyone's list in terms of power rankings.
Yeah. To add on to that, I mean, from an outside perspective, it seems like Kent's had a very up and down semester in the fall. I mean, just watching that pink out, or I think it was pink out, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah,
this
pick out.
past semester. Yeah, pink out. They had two really like ugly looking losses on the score sheet, and then they came to the Athens, and they it seemed like they kind of flipped the script. They blew out some teams that they got blown out by, or that they blew out teams at the JBBB that they looked like they were struggling against about a month prior.
Yeah, we've exercised quite a lot of like demons this season so far. You know, we beat Akron for the first time since 2019. We beat Miami for the first time since probably even longer than that. I think the key to the second half of the season is going to be consistency, because there are points where we can still struggle and you know, get behind early in games and you know, kind of lose our footing a little bit. But I think if we keep making the adjustments that we made going into tournaments like Bobcat Bonanza, I think we can compete with anyone in this league. You know, I have no doubts about that. But it is going to be a question about consistency for us. I do.
Yeah, I think just from what I've seen, Kent State and Michigan State might be the two most talented teams in the league in terms of pure 12 on 12. You know, give me your best 12 in terms of who throws the hardest, who catches the best. I think that those two might be the most two talented teams. I think Ohio State is definitely also in the question. Grand Valley has some guys over there. Miami's the reigning champions and it's one loss, but that one loss was 7-0 to Kent, which I still think is the best win of the year. Any team, 7-0 over Miami at in Athens. Michigan State wise, like you were saying, Rylan, a lot of asterisks, a lot of well, they haven't played anybody. You know, they played Central Michigan 3 times. They have not only beaten everybody, they've dismantled them. They've like dominated literally every game they've played, and it's kind of terrifying, like to watch. Like the last game they had against GV, or maybe the second to last, was like 6-0. That's that's terrifying. I don't want to play them, like straight up. After seeing that, like, so I think that'll be probably in my eyes matchup of the year until ODC. Just that those two going at it. It's two heavyweights right there going at it. That'll be
I,
fun to watch.
I do think it'll be a good indicator about where these teams are going into the second half of the season.
Yeah, and is it two sanctioned games back to back, or is it a open and then a women's?
It is a double header for Pinch, and then I believe they were trying to organize a women's event. I believe there might be a secondary women's event going on this weekend instead. I don't remember what came of that, but I know that there are more women's tournaments in the works.
And without showing your hand too much, Rylan, with what kind of game plan? Like I want to get into some of the nitty gritty just real quick. Like, what are some keys that you guys have talked about when it comes to beating Michigan State?
I think the biggest changes we've been making lately are the positions of where certain guys play on the court. I think we've kind of adapted different spots and found that players we've historically had in certain roles are a lot more comfortable in different roles, and they work better with running different lanes with different partners and stuff like that. And I think that reorganization is what really helped us a lot at JBBB. Um, that's probably going to be the biggest thing is experimenting more with that and making sure that we can put together the most like comfortable complete lineup possible.
Yeah, and being a former teammate of his, I know that whenever you have number 16 on your side, E-Man Miller, you've always got a chance.
Yeah, he's been fantastic for us. He's been everything that I hoped he would be when I heard he was coming over here. Taking good
You're
care of
welcome.
him. Yeah, of course. Appreciate it.
So then we got a third tournament going on, correct? Something down in the south. Not sure. No, I don't know the exact details on that.
Yeah,
If
I've
someone
got
else
it.
has that,
I've got it pulled up here.
Yeah, North
We've got,
Georgia
yeah,
Gold Rush.
and that's at University of North Georgia. It looks like Alabama, Georgia Southern, and North Georgia are playing. Northern Georgia being the heavy favorites in all the games. I mean, they're what? They're in the top 16, right?
I believe so. Yeah, they've done really well against all the other Southern competition. I don't remember. I don't remember if they played NKU this year. I know
they
historically
have.
NKU's okay. I know NKU's kind of been the top dog of the Southern region, and a lot of that can be attributed to the fact that they've been able to consistently play against non-Southern competition. It is a lot harder for some of those deep South teams to travel and play more Ohio schools and get experience that way. But UNG has historically, from what I can remember, been the school that plays NKU the closest. They do look really strong. I know they have a lot of like former NCDA alumni helping them out, like Alex Phillips, that kind of help put them together as a more complete team. But there's a lot of excitement brewing in the Southern region. I know that it's essentially a brand new budding region, but all of the teams that have been there so far are gaining steam fast. Alabama, I think, just came into the league last year, and they're picking up steam really quickly. I'm really excited
Yeah,
to see what they do in the next couple seasons, and
yeah.
especially at this tournament.
It's really exciting to see what Avery Weathers is doing for Alabama. I mean, he's been doing so much for the ambassador committee alone, just trying to expand his South region, just so they can play more teams. It's really cool. They played their first match this year. They won their first match this year against Georgia Southern. Um, they've been scoring points in all of them, so they haven't been getting shutting out or anything too often. It's just really exciting to see that Alabama team like just grow the league in general with Avery Weathers just doing all he's doing. Just got to give a shout out to him, to Avery, just with all the cool stuff with the ambassador committee. But yeah, we got UNG. Looks like they're the top dog. I mean, they haven't lost a game to a Southern opponent except for NKU in this tournament. I mean, Georgia Southern is pretty here or there. I think they're 1-1 against Alabama, so they seem to be a more pretty evenly matched game. That's probably going to be the game to look out for. They're the only teams that have split against each other in this. So yeah,
I also do implore people to like genuinely watch these Southern tournaments. I know a lot of people might write them off because there's a lot of like lower ranked opponents or whatever, and they might not take them as seriously. But they are genuinely exciting tournaments. There are some very close games being played there. There's a lot of really nice developing dodgeball and a lot of upcoming players that you'll see in these tournaments that you should watch out for. I'm really excited to see how the rest of the Southern region keeps developing.
I think the
Yeah,
best part is just having NKU go down to those tournaments, just so there's still a blend of it all. So there's not just like there's no disconnect within the leagues like we think there is sometimes with the East Coast, that they're actually able to travel down there and play Ohio schools and then go to the South and play against those like Southern teams. I think that's a lot more valuable than we think it is.
Yeah, and I would love to see more bridge schools be added in the next couple of years. Kentucky get their program back. If we can get Tennessee to get a program, those would be awesome. Like, bridge schools that we could see a lot more teams from both
Of
the
course.
southern and northern areas travel to at the same time. That would be awesome.
Eli,
yeah. I think I haven't seen much of these Southern teams. I've watched a couple games actually. Um, I mean, North Georgia is so fun to watch. Like, they're unbelievably athletic. Like, they're not. There are obviously a lot of people who are just getting into dodgeball, Not much experience, not much playing, but they just fly around the court. They're super athletic, and sometimes that's really not all you need, but that's such a great stepping stone to have. Like, I mean, that's how the East Coast teams kind of rise up. They've got guys who can jump out of the gym, who can chase you down in the lines, and then you teach them how to pinch and hit someone in the ankles. Then you're like, well, those guys are pretty good. So I think North Georgia is on a really really good track. Yeah, like you were saying, Avery Weathers. I think they've done more for the league than just about anybody this year. I think the Discord's always blowing up with any thoughts they have or um, ways to progress the league forward, and it's been remarkable to see.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I mean, all the stuff in the ambassador committee has been really exciting to see. Just all the prospective teams in that recent post with the NCDA, all the new teams that have played their first match, all like the hopefuls. It's just there's so many more schools popping up around that it's no longer that Ohio Michigan sport that you're used to if you've been around the league the past like 5 or 6 years. It's exciting. But yeah, I think we're gonna move over to the our standings. We're gonna talk about the standings. That sound good? Top
That works for
16 we're going
me.
to go about.
Great.
Yeah, so at number one, we got OSU. I mean, they've had a pretty dominant season so far. They've lost 3 games, but I mean, they've been some interesting asterisk games. If you look at their record, I mean, or if you look at their matches specifically, Eli, you got any thoughts on the OSU team this year?
Uh, I'll go for him while he's muted. Yeah, I know a lot of the OSU losses have come from situations where they were down a couple of starters. But overall, when they are at full strength, they are dominant. They are obviously the number one seed and probably the number one like power ranked team in a lot of people's brackets for a reason. Just at full force, there's so much firepower. You've got Colson Bunch, you've got guys like Will Dalton, just up and comers, top to bottom. They're just such a complete roster. There's not a lot of weak points on the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, just from our perspective, from the OU standpoint, we did have a win against them in the opening tournament, but it's hard to like actually think that that win is actually going to happen with a full strength OSU team. Them only coming down with 11 players with when we were full strength as we could be. It's just hard to convince ourselves that that would have been the same outcome with two full strength rosters.
And they didn't have the two guys Rylan mentioned, or no, they did have Dalton actually, but he wasn't throwing 100%.
Yeah,
And Bunch did not make the trip. But no, like you're saying, such an unbelievably deep roster. I mean, you had such a great foundation. This team, without the additions they made in the offseason, is a top 3 team, I'd say. And then you add the National Player of the Year runner-up, Max Hedling,
yeah,
who is
arguably
probably
the best player in the national tournament.
and maybe the best on-court leader in all of the sport. And then a more sneaky guy, another OU guy, so I got to shout him out, Nate Burhalter. He's like a shoe-in for their starting lineup. He rides a lot of speed. You got guys like Jackson Kinney in the middle, Braylon Jarvis, just talent everywhere for Ohio State. It's really impressive.
Yeah, of course. All those players you mentioned have been recognized recently in the NCDA, with Nate Berhalter on the newest breakout post, and then Braylon Jarvis was a rookie, the first team all rookie last year. So it's just really, they have a really stacked lineup. Going on to Miami at number 2, I mean, this former national championship right here, it's not unexpected at all.
No, I think going into the season, a lot of people were worried about the losses of Cole Ginocchio and Max Edling. Specifically, Edling going to Ohio State doesn't, help take that 1 seed back any easier. But they, outside of the hiccup game that they had against us, they haven't missed a beat. They were 8-0 going into that, or no, sorry, 6-0 going into that game. That's still the only game that they lost. After that tournament, they're as strong as anyone else in the roster, and I think that their depth is a lot sneakier than people think. I mean, you have guys like Philip Hampton and Max Boone, just like fantastic on-court leaders. They retained a lot more of that championship roster, and they have a lot more experience than people think. And it hasn't been as loud ringing the drum for them this year because of some of the big losses of Edling and Ginocchio, but they're more or less just as good as they were last year. Like, they've developed a lot of the rookies that have come up in their place very well.
Yeah, I think to speak on that specifically, Max Boone and Philip Hampton, they've taken a lot bigger of a step up than you would have expected. Losing those two players, I mean, they've really filled that role perfectly and just been dominant against everyone they've played. Obviously, against that one game, but they've still always just been dominant. It's been really good to see.
Yeah, and even more on Phil. I think when people saw Max to OSU and then Cole Ganocchio graduating, it was obvious that, or maybe not obvious because there really hasn't been, but people were thinking, man, there's gonna be a talent drop off. Like, you know, they're losing two All Americans. You know, I was kind of concerned about their leadership, just because Edling is such a huge part. Like playing against him last year, it didn't really matter who was throwing. You had to have an eye on Edling because he was barking out orders, he was pump faking, he was putting people where they needed to be. And I think Hampton has gone from, I don't know if I can think of a better analogy than this, but he's gone from Robin to Batman. You know, he's completely filled that role that Edling had. He was the October Baller of the Month. Like it's been impressive to see how he's taken over Edling's role both in a talent, like on court play style wise, and in a leadership. Because now he's the one who's calling the plays out. He's the one setting up team throws. You know, so it's been impressive to see how they've stayed so strong despite losing two of the best players in the entire league last year.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think they retained a lot of the structure they had from last year, and
Yeah.
that's helped them a lot.
Yeah, and then going on, we have number 3, MSU. Talked a little bit about them and how they're undefeated with a little bit of an asterisk, as Ryland says it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it too much of an asterisk. Just I know people kind of write off the level of competition that they played so far, but that is not a reason to discount them at all. I think they're as strong as anyone here. I think they're easily. Uh, I would not fault anyone for putting them as their championship favorite whatsoever.
Yeah, definitely. I think those matches against GVSU really prove that. It's going to be exciting to see them hopefully play some more those higher level teams outside of them with like Kent State, Miami, OSU, just teams I don't think they've played yet. You know, it'll be really exciting to see them play those games and see if they can keep that undefeated record, which I definitely think they can with strong coaching of Kevin Ewan and just all their just depth throughout the board on that team.
Yeah, I mean the firepower they have, and it hasn't really been, I don't know to say tested yet, but you know when it is going to be tested, it will hold up. Like that's how stable they are because it's not guys that are rising up now. Like some teams have like the breakout players from the first half who like, you know, maybe they'll be the guy for them. Maybe they'll be an All American. These are All Americans. These are people who have, you have a National Player of the Year. You have, you know, and Matt Baraball. You have Zach Van Fleet, All American. Alex Edson, All American. Luke Foco, Rookie of the Year. Um, Gerling, another Rookie of the Year finalist. Just a ton of guys who have already cemented their place in the league as superstars.
Yeah,
And
I think.
then and
Sorry.
then no, you're good. So it's not like you're looking for a continuation of just the first semester. You're looking for a continuation of the last 2 to 3 years in terms of the talent they've had.
I think a big thing to think about when it comes to like their like success is just looking at the NDA summer season this year with both of their teams, with their alumni and a couple of the current MSU guys on the Final Justice making a really deep run, just being one of the most dominant teams in the NDA, and then the Lansing Leviathans. I think this is their first year in the NDA, if I'm not mistaken.
It is their second year.
It's their
Yeah.
second year in the NDA, but like they really proved a lot wrong. I'm pretty sure they made the Final Four after.
In nationals, they made the quarterfinals top eight, but they did make a finals appearance at Columbus. So
Yes,
their
exactly. That's what
development's
I'm
been
thinking of.
fantastic.
They made a finals appearance with like just a straight MSU roster with a lot of their younger guys, a lot of their sophomores, not all like most of them filled with underclassmen that are all on their starting 12 for MSU. It's just really like interesting to see how dominant they were against these like the best of the best in the alumni league in the NDA. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think people should discount the amount of development that the NDA has done for that Leviathans team. It helps put together a lot more interpersonal chemistry. I know the 8-on-8 rosters make the courts a little bit smaller. You kind of have to work with your fellow teammates a little bit closer than you would in a 12v12, and I think it's done wonders for their.
Of course. Yeah. So we're gonna go on to GVSU at number 4. It's they're 9-3. Only a couple of losses to MSU and I think someone else, but they've had a really good season so far. I mean, they've been pretty dominant in the the games that they've won.
Yeah, it's they're another one that's kind of hard to gauge because they simultaneously compete really heavily with all the top teams. Their scores are right there with all of them. Even outside of, I know they had that one rough game against MSU, but they've been playing incredibly close games against teams like Miami and Ohio State. Um, but at the same time, they also are prone to playing very close games against teams ranked way below them. Rough showings. They barely put away CSU in overtime at Peterborough Classic. I know BGSU was playing them really closely at John Metters, right before that. So they're hit or miss, but when they're firing on all cylinders, again, they're another team that I would say are just as strong as anybody. It's tough because they've been kind of in the shadow of MSU for the last couple seasons, but I don't expect that to be a permanent thing at all. It would not surprise me if they notch wins against MSU at MDC this year, or get an upset on that front at all. Yeah, I could easily see them making a run.
Yeah, I think they're always going to have the top line talent. I think they've got a shout for best big three in the league with Aiden Jacobs, Ryan Paddock, and Matt Budai. Just those three are not only talented but extremely experienced too. I believe they're all upperclassmen, and it shows in the way they play. And also, freshman wise, they didn't really have many last year that I noticed, but then when they came to Athens this year for the Bobcat Bonanza, I noticed a couple guys like with maybe mismatched jerseys that were looked like they were pretty new to the game, but they were really good, and I think that helps with Kevin Bailey being your coach. Learning from the greatest to ever do it, some would say, and I think that's really helped GV a lot this year.
Yeah, teams like OSU and GV both have really deep alumni support systems that I think always help them just be perennial contenders no matter what. It's you've got so much experience to pull from, so much knowledge and wisdom about the game. It's really hard for them to ever be a truly like bad team.
Yo, all right, we're gonna go on to Kent State, number 5 in on the rankings so far. Rylan, the current coach of Kent State, and they're a 7-3 right now with a couple tough losses at the Peterborough Classic, but they've had a pretty solid season so far outside of that. Or I'm sorry, Pink Out, not Peterborough Classic.
Yeah, like I was saying, I think consistency is going to be the name of the game for us this year. Not just in how we play, but how we practice. We do, I think, get some potential players back this semester that we were waiting on the previous semester. That kind of remains to be seen, but I'm very optimistic about the outlook of the team. I think that, like you said, talent wise, I think like top to bottom, top 12, I think we could easily be a top 2-3 team in the league. It's just a matter of organization, and a lot of that does admittedly fall on me. But I think I've been doing as best we can, and so have all the player leaders on the team to kind of get everyone up into shape. We just can't get into the habit of starting out slow like we do at tournaments like Pink Out. And I think this upcoming weekend and tournaments like ODC are going to be a really big test for us to consistently play. There's just no bad teams, even in the Ohio region at all. And I think being able to run a gauntlet against teams like MSU and all the Ohio teams is going to be really important for our experience and development.
Yeah, from a preseason perspective, I mean, with all those additions you had, everyone had Kent State being a top 5 team at the bottom. I mean, and that's where they're at right now. They're at 5, and I think they definitely have some room to move up and jump some of those teams that we just talked about with the roster that they have. And it's really exciting to see what they can do at MSU. It'll be a really cool matchup to watch for both of the teams' perspectives.
They look great doing it. I think Kent State is the best jersey in the league. That's just my opinion.
He loves that powder blue, don't you?
I love to see Ivan Harbison fly down the wings in his headband in that powder blue, but that's just me.
I've been trying to get us powder blue jerseys since my sophomore year of playing. I'm so glad everyone loves them.
They're awesome.
Good shout out to Evan Harbison there, current Gamecock. That's where my NBA desires reside. Fly the coop. That's what's up. And at number 6, we have probably the least known about team from the three of us. We have the University of Nebraska. And they're 7-0 right now. But the little bit of an asterisk next to this, the more asterisk on the undefeated team, is they have only played teams in the what I don't even know what that's called, the West,
Central
Central West
region,
Coast,
yeah.
Central region. Sorry, yeah, they have all their wins are against Platteville, Illinois. Pardon me for 1 second. Yeah, we got Platteville, Eau Claire, and it looks like just Illinois, and then they have some. Yeah, so they've been pretty dominant in the wins that they've had, but like I said, they have not played a single team in the Ohio, Michigan, or Southern or East Coast region. They've been pretty deadlocked in the Central.
Yeah, I think the Central kind of falls into the same issues that the East Coast has, where it's difficult for them to travel and play some of the barometer teams, you would say, in like the Michigan and Ohio region. Um, but you can only play the teams that are in front of you, and they've looked great doing it so far. I know last year they kind of took a back seat to schools like Illinois and Platteville. I do think that their wins against Illinois could have some weight to them because they did finish nationals in a really strong manner last year. Um, and so I obviously with standings and having played the teams that they play, their ranking in the standings is going to be a little bit inflated. But I don't think that they're necessarily a bad team by any means. Again, you can only play the teams that are in front of you, and they've been very good against the ones that they have played so far.
Yeah, they'll definitely be a very interesting team to watch out for at nationals. Eli, you have anything on them?
Yeah, I think like you said, you can only play who's on your schedule, and they've done that, and they've done that well. They're not just winning; they're kind of dominating right now. And you can never know what they do against a Michigan or Ohio school or some of the higher caliber schools. But right now, they're number 6 in the nation, which is unbelievable for a school that probably people in their preseason didn't have in their top 20. Um, and a huge shout out to Malachi Horn, I believe is his name. He's a baller. Like I remember him at nationals watching a game, and he was a freshman last year. He was unbelievable, and he's only stepped it up. He's been their player of the month. I believe he might have won some kind of baller of the month award. I'm not 100% sure, but he's been really good, and he's every good team needs their guy, and I think he could be the guy for them.
Yeah. And then moving on to number 7, University of Cincinnati. They're 5-4, but I think they have some pretty weighted wins and weighted losses as well. They've been really stacked up against the best of the best in their matchups at the moment. So they've had a pretty off and on season when it comes to their like top level matchups, but it's really interesting to see where they're at against these elite teams.
Yeah, I could easily see them making a much stronger second semester run. The talent is there. There's no doubt about that. The Rising Stars list, they just had, let's see, what's his name? Mike Obert. That kid's a baller. You've still got guys like Will Hyatt and Sweeney. They've been prone to like slow first half of the season starts in the past. And I do think that they will pick it up a lot more in the second semester. I think they'll come in a lot more disciplined, ready to go. This is the first season that they don't get their second semester reinforcements of guys like Ski and Engelman. So I am curious to see how that factors into it, but I think that the talent they do have will be ready to step.
Yeah, I mean their only losses are they have 2 losses against their defending champions Miami, who they just haven't been able to break the barrier of beating yet this year after the disappointing loss. And then OSU, the top 1 ranked team, and Kent State, a very formidable opponent that everyone has in the top 5. So all their losses are against teams that have been ranked higher than them. So it'll be really interesting to see if they can really break that barrier and beat some of those teams.
Yeah, they're another team who recruits athletes and then turns them into dodgeball players. I think, and that's going to come with a lot of first semester bumps. That's going to come with hard throwers who make dumb mistakes. And then second semester, like we saw last year, although it's kind of an outlier since it was such a, as you said, experienced team with Ski and Engelman and Sterling, Isaiah Montgomery, all those guys who are seniors who have now left the program. But the athletes they have now, they're going to sharpen up. They're going to get way more dodgeball oriented. They're going to learn, don't throw twice here in this situation, or do throw twice if you've got a good look at a team star player. And I think they'll be really dangerous come second semester, and then especially nationals. It seems like the Bearcats always turn it on in April. I can't remember the exact margin, but they only let up before the national championship game. They lost like 5 points in 6 games. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. So then our last team we're going to go over here is number 8, Akron. They have a 5-8 record, so it's the only team in the top 8 with a losing record, which is really interesting to see. But I'm pretty sure that comes from just some pretty weighted wins that they've had. And, they've had an interesting year to think about coming off that a semifinal appearance, a really long undefeated season last year, going into, I think, after ODC, they were still undefeated. So they had a really dominant year. They went in as the 1 seed in a lot of stuff. So they've had a really interesting year with some graduates, and they've just lost a lot of players. So yeah, it's been an up and down year for them, if I had to put it in a couple words.
Yeah, it was always going to be hard for them to replicate the season that they had last year because of the graduations that they've had. You lose Carter Crawford, you lose Chance Priest, you lose even guys like Eric Kavanaugh. Just really key pieces for this team. But the biggest thing that always keeps them a scary, like genuinely scary team that you can never write off is their coaching and like chemistry and discipline. They are so well coached. They have so much chemistry together, and they always punch above their weight, no matter what their like top to bottom talent situation looks like. They will always overcome that. We've seen it in these games. They're playing top teams extremely close. Games that you would think they'd have no business being in. They're such a relentless program to put away. You could attribute a lot of that to a guy like Adam Pfeiffer as a coach, and just the alumni and time that they've had to play together and grow some synergy and stuff. So that you can never write Akron off, genuinely.
Yeah, and I think that you can accredit a lot to that to a certain player. I mean, Jeremy Faircloth, in my opinion, might be one of the most I think he is the most underrated player in the league. I mean, he was NDA second team. He was the second best ranked player in the NDA. He was first team all NDA in an alumni team with players far better than some of the teams that they've been playing. And he's just been dominant. I mean, in the games that they win, he seems to be that factor that puts them over the edge. And he's the guy that keeps them in the games that they're playing those close games with.
I have heard buzzings that he may not be playing this semester. That last semester may have been his last one. I can't confirm that. That's just rumblings that I've heard. But again, other talent they've had. Ada Douglas has taken massive steps forward, and you can't talk about Akron without talking about Alexis Schultz. I could very well see her being the first female player to make the co-ed All-American list this year. She's unbelievable. She just played for Team USA in Dodgeball this couple weeks ago. Just so much experience with this team, and it's really hard to write them off in general, no matter who they do lose.
Yeah, I think that's a shame that this could be Faircloth's last semester because, in my experience, he's the hardest thrower I've ever played against, which was surprising because we played them at the Bobcat Bonanza, and we'd also played them last year, and I played a round of NDA with him. But the strides he's made are ridiculous. I mean, he's such a good player, and it's a shame if he really is not coming back for another semester. I still think Akron's in a really good spot. I think, and I wrote this in the preseason rankings I did, the article I put out. It obviously matters to have talent, but in an Adam Pfeiffer system where it's more like he's more like a drill sergeant, and he can do whatever we want with the players, and they'll respond. I mean, it works out perfectly for Akron, especially in a year where the talent isn't necessarily as high, but the chemistry, like you said, and organization will always be there.
Easily.
Yeah, so that was our top 8. I think the last thing we got on the docket is we're going to do a fun little. We're all three of us are going to have our Final Four predictions for nationals this year. So, Eli, you got yours ready? You think you know what you got?
Here we go. Off the cuff, I'm going to go Michigan State. I think they'll be the 1 seed going into nationals. I think Kent's going to make it. I'm a huge Kent fan. I don't know if it's Northeast Ohio biased. I'm a Cleveland guy, born and raised. If it's those beautiful jerseys, if it's Evan Harbison's beautiful lettuce that flows out of his head, or what it is. But I'm a huge Kent State guy. I'm going to go I'm gonna go Ohio State. I think the talent's too much. And then it's between Ohio State and Miami.
I think you had Ohio State
Or
already.
Grand Valley and Miami.
Gotcha.
And I think I'm gonna go. They played each other. It was an overtime game. I refed. It was super stressful. Everyone was yelling at me, and Grand Valley did yell at me more. So I'm gonna put Miami in my Final Four.
All right, Rylan, what do you got?
I'm gonna go pretty similar. I think kind of chalky. I'll go OSU. I'll go MSU. I'll take my Kent guys. I think my one somewhat dark horse like wild card. I think I'm going to put UC back in there. I think they put the talent together. I think I could easily see them making a deep run this year.
They also came to mind for me just because Will Hyatt is a big game player, straight up.
Yeah, they're definitely in my thoughts at the moment. I'm going to stick with the same number one. I think OSU definitely sticks at the number one for me. I think they're going to be in there coming into nationals ranked number one. I think they're going to step it up this semester. I mean, with no more OSU football games to worry about, they're definitely going to be showing out with some more numbers, hopefully. So they'll be full strength most of the time. And I think they're really my ODC winners if I weren't playing for Ohio, because
Right.
Ohio is going to take it all.
We're gonna win it.
You know,
obviously.
they're my runners up. And then number two, I'm going to have to put MSU. I mean, they've just been so dominant this year. It's tough to overlook them with their 8-0 record and just how dominant they've been against everyone. I think if I were to, I wish I could have waited a weekend just because of that matchup against Kent State, because that's really who I have in my 3 and 4. But I'm going to have to go with the Dodgeball Bobs at number 4, just with the belief I have in my team as a president, as a captain. You know, I really think we're bound to take that step up. And, even with a detrimental loss, a little bit of a bomb trap here, detrimental loss of Terrence Checkett, all NDA player. I mean, we're gonna come out swinging this weekend, and I know the grit we have. We're gonna make the top 4, and this is our year to win nationals. I'll tell you that, folks.
Hell yeah!
Nobody's as gritty as us.
We're the gritty Dodgebobs. That's what we're called. But I think that's all we got for today. We're gonna wrap it up around now. It's getting pretty late for us. So, any last words from either of you two?
No, not off the top of my head. I'm really excited to see how this weekend goes and how the rest of the semester goes in general. I think there's going to be a lot of exciting stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I think I'm as excited to watch as I am to play this year because I think my feet are wet in terms of getting into the league, and now I'm excited to see like I'm pumped for this Kent Michigan State game this weekend. I'm pumped for ODC. I'm pumped for the big tournaments, like just to be there and watch and maybe even ref or commentate. Like I'm excited to see what happens.
It's exciting stuff. Well, we'll catch you later, folks. That'll be the end of it.
A good one.